Shana Tova. So I want to begin this evening by sharing with you a short Talmudic story. This story is about a rabbi, Rabbi Chia bar Abba, who fell ill. So as soon as he got the news, another rabbi, Rabbi Yochanan, paid him a visit. So when he entered the room, Rabbi Yochanan asked Rabbi Chia, Havivin alecha isurin, which is Hebrew for, is your suffering dear to you? Are you having fun? To which Rabbi Chia answered, not at all. So upon hearing his friend's response, Rabbi Yochanan stretched out his arm, lifted his colleague from the bed, and at that moment, Rabbi Chia's health somehow was restored. Now, as soon as Rabbi Chia recovered, guess what? The Talmud teaches that Rabbi Yochanan fell ill. Between us, I guess that Rabbi Yochanan didn't wash his hands after spending time with his sick friend. We learned after COVID, we know better. But he didn't. So when Rabbi Yochanan is lying in bed, Rabbi Hanina, a third rabbi, went to visit him and eventually helped him regain his strength. By the end of the story, the Talmud doesn't really share with us whether Rabbi Hanina also caught the same nasty virus that afflicted the other two rabbis. But instead, the Talmud asks the following question. If Rabbi Yochanan was so good at helping his friend, why was he unable to restore his own health? To that, the Talmud replies, Ein chabush matir atzmo mi beita asurim. A prisoner cannot free himself from jail. Although we may often think that we are self-sufficient, Judaism teaches us that we are deeply interdependent, that we need each other, and that especially when going through a rough patch in our lives, our health, physical health, emotional health, mental or spiritual health, our health rests in the hands of our community, our families, and our friends. As I was studying this story, I came across a Hasidic interpretation that resonated with me and that I believe can help us frame the year that has just begun. So commenting on the notion that a prisoner cannot free himself or herself from jail, Rabbi Nachman Mibretzlav explained that even if we are aware of our own limitations, this should not prevent us from helping and encouraging others, because it is always easier to inspire others than to strengthen ourselves. The word that Rabbi Nachman uses to speak about encouragement is lechazek, which in Hebrew means to give strength. His message is straightforward. Recognizing our own shortcomings should never serve as an excuse to avoid being there for others in their time of need. On the contrary, when we are self-aware, we can assist others while acknowledging our own failings and faults. That is, by the way, how we can keep our feet on the ground and don't get any ideas. By giving strength to others, we may find a measure of strength for ourselves. And as they become free from their personal jails, we may succeed in tasting a bit of their freedom and perhaps a bit of our own freedom as well. For all of us, this past year has been a very dark and challenging time. First and foremost, we have the hostages. There are 101 hostages still in Gaza, waiting to return safely to their homes. For them, This has been a season filled with isolation, hunger, and despair, far away from the warm embrace of their loved ones. These prisoners, these hostages, need us. They rely on our voices and outstretched arms, and they depend on us to keep working every day and every night to secure their liberation. How can we do that? For example, it's crucial that we send emails to our elected officials, to the office of the President of the United States, and to the Secretary of State, telling them that this is important. I'm not saying this. Rachel Goldberg-Polin told us when we were in Israel that this is important, that they hate in the office of the President or the Secretary of State when there are a gazillion emails telling them to remember the hostage. But they have said, keep doing it, because that is how we keep this on top of the agenda. Another way of helping, we can share the stories of these hatufim, of these hostages on social media, so that they are not forgotten or left behind in the constant flood of new events. Both the hostages and their heartbroken families are counting on us, and it is our moral Jewish obligation to do as much as we can to bring them back. The thousands of Israelis, both in the north and in the south, who have been displaced since October 7th, have also endured significant trauma. Many have seen their kibbutzim and towns destroyed or damaged and no longer have a home to return to. We are talking about children whose education and emotional well-being have been completely disrupted, and about fathers and mothers whose lives are in turmoil from serving long months in the IDF's reserve units, or just because they have to worry non-stop for the dear ones who may be serving in the army as we speak. All of them need us as well, and we can help alleviate some of their pain by making donations to a number of Israeli organizations doing holy work over there, or by actively participating in solidarity trips ourselves to volunteer in Israel. In the last year, I had the privilege to visit Israel twice. And every time I met displaced families and spoke with them, they expressed deep gratitude for our support. While we couldn't solve their housing problems, our presence showed them that they were not alone and that we cared about them, bringing a measure of solace and light to their grueling days. Now, here at home, we have lots of individuals whose lives are in disarray. Unfortunately, there is no shortage of fellow Nashvillians struggling with homelessness, hunger, and unemployment. Many have been wounded by substance abuse, broken families, or gun violence, to name a few. Their suffering makes a claim on us because, as the Jewish philosopher Emmanuel Levinas used to say, when we see their faces and look into their eyes, their struggle becomes our own struggle, and their grief becomes our grief. That's why here at West End we have partnered over the years with many local organizations, such as Room in the Inn, the Martha O'Brien Center, the Nashville Food Project, Oasis, and Habitat for Humanity, to name a few. I am deeply thankful to our Social Action Committee for all the hard work that they have done and continue to do in this regard. I'm also grateful to all of you who volunteer with other organizations as well. As your commitment shows, that you are not indifferent to the challenges so many are facing today. In Judaism, choosing to be an active part of the solution is another form of prayer. Finally, I want us to look at each other and acknowledge how tough this year has been for us. On top of the usual stress that we may carry from work, family dynamics, and whatever else is happening in our lives, over the past 12 months, we have been called to become experts on the Middle East. Our relationships with people we used to consider our allies have been severely damaged, and the increasing polarization around our upcoming presidential election has not fostered a nurturing environment for our own souls. That's why this evening I would like to invite you to do something integral to our Jewish tradition, even though we don't do it very often. So once services are over, just a few minutes, and you gather around the table to share a festive meal with family and friends, I encourage you to begin the dinner by blessing one another. I want you to give strength to each other, and offering a heartfelt bracha to people you love can be a powerful way to do that. As the Baal Shem Tov once taught, how can people free themselves from jail when their thoughts and ideas are trapped? At those moments, they can't help themselves at all. Therefore, a friend should pray for them. This is what I want you to do today. Not just the blessing over Kiddush, not just the blessing over challah with honey. Take a few moments and find the words to bless the people around you. If you're like me, you may feel self-conscious doing this. But I can assure you that if you allow yourself to be vulnerable enough to share words of love to the people you love, this year will begin slightly better from how the last year is coming to an end. So it is in that spirit that I will lead by example, and although we are not around the table, what I would do at the very end of my remarks is sharing a blessing, my blessing, to all of you for this new year that has just begun. And so I will say, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imoteinu, our God and God of our fathers and mothers, eternal God and guardian of the people of Israel. In this holy hour, I ask you to bless this congregation and everyone gathered here today. Pour out your loving kindness to those who are aching, and extend the gift of friendship to those who feel alone. Help us find resilience amidst the darkness and the courage to care for one another. Grant us your grace and compassion as we strive to become more graceful and compassionate ourselves. In this sacred season, I pray that our hearts remain open to the suffering of others. God of peace, whose name is Shalom. God of peace, whose name is peace. May we look forward to better and more prosperous days. May the hostages return safely to their families, and may those who are displaced find the way back to their homes. God of love, bless our dear ones with good health, and be a source of resilience and light to those who are struggling and in pain. Today and every day, inspire us to be the change we wish to see in this broken world. As we embark on this new year, may our actions reflect our hopes, and may we always find the strength to uplift each other. Fill our hearts with love and our lives with moral clarity. Bless us all with a good and meaningful year. And may we all be inscribed in your book of life, in your book of sustenance, and in your book of peace. Amen. Shana Tova u'mevorachat. May we all have a blessed new year. Amen.